So, we're going to look at how honey is made and why vegans don't eat it. But first, let's get through the intro. Hi, it's Fee here, the healthy vegan author and creator of the Gold Card Vegan resource website. Honey, it's that sweet condiment that people use instead of sugar. It's also a pretty intensive process. The wee bee heads out to go and get some nectar. Yes, the bee is a she or an it because the male or drone only mates with the queen and then dies, the poor guy. But he's done his bit for the good of the hive, right? Anyway, I'm going to explain this as simply as I can. So the honeybee uses her long tube-shaped tongue to extract the sugary liquid from the flower, and she stores it in her extra stomach. As she flies around, the liquid kind of sloshes about and mixes with enzymes, and this transforms it into a more durable stuff for long-term storage. As soon as the bee returns to the hive, it regurgitates the liquid into the mouth of another bee. Go figure. But that's not the end. This regurgitation, or vomiting as vegans like to call it, is passed from bee to bee to bee to bee, or not to bee, until the partially digested nectar is finally deposited into a honeycomb. Now, it's still liquid at this point, not the thick stuff you may use on your breakfast toast. So the bees fan the honeycomb with their wings to get the extra water to evaporate. Now, once they're happy, the honeycomb is then sealed with a secretion from the bee's abdomen. This hardens into beeswax, which means that the honey will be stored indefinitely and be an excellent food source for the cold winter months. That is, until someone comes along and robs the hive. So let me give you some bee facts, okay? It takes 2 million flowers to produce 1 pound or under 500 grams of honey. 2, for the same amount of honey, the bees must fly 89 kilometers or 55,000 miles to get it. One bee colony can produce around 60 to 100 pounds of honey, or 27 to 45 kilos. Do that every year. An average worker bee can only make about 1/12 of a teaspoon of honey in her entire life. So as you can see, it's an awful lot of work. We need bees. We all know that. They pollinate the fruits and vegetables we eat. And we need them to give us healthy ecosystems and food security. And we also need wild bees and bumblebees for pollination, along with many other insects. But sadly, due to chemicals, bee populations are declining. But that's a story for another day. So why don't vegans eat honey? Now we come to the ethical side and what we view as the exploitation of an animal, insects included, something vegans are fervently against. So that you know, the bee has a large nervous system capable of transmitting pain signals. You can witness this yourself as bees move to avoid pain, and stinging a human is the last resort for the honeybee because one sting and it dies. Those hives that look like great homes where you think the bee is free, think again. We enslave the bee with those hives and force it to make honey for our use. Remember I said that they make honey to have food over the winter months? Well, in the commercial trade, while they're out working for us, we rob their hive of their core products of honey, royal jelly, and beeswax. Harvesting the honey is done in the autumn. leaving the bees without nutrition for the winter, and instead we feed them on sugar supplements. Now, the more ethical beekeepers harvest the honey in the spring. However, there is still the process of removing the honey, and even beekeepers that love and respect their bees still have deaths. Here in Aotearoa, New Zealand, we actually do have some very strict regulations around the honey hives, etc. But the process begins by smoking the bees. And the principle of smoking has been known for thousands of years, but it's only just recently that the reason it works has been discovered. So out in the wild, if a beehive is threatened, guard bees will release a volatile pheromone substance, better known as an alarm odour. And this alerts the middle-aged bees in the hive, which actually have the most venom, to defend the hive by attacking the intruder. When smoke is blown into the hive, the guard bees' receptors are dulled and they fail to sound the alarm. But that's not all. The smoke has a secondary effect in that it causes other bees to instinctively gorge themselves on honey, which is a survival instinct in case they must vacate the hive and recreate somewhere else. This gorging tends to pacify the bees. Okay, so now that the bees are calmer, Mr. Beekeeper can remove the frames. Bees get stepped on or squashed by the frames, and the bees that sting the farmer while defending their home also die, as I mentioned before. It's not on purpose, but a hazard of checking the hives and taking the honey if bees die. However, other beekeepers are not so caring about their bees. Just as in the case of factory farming other animals, bees can also be factory farmed. Humans have been using honey since about 15,000 BC. However, it wasn't until the 20th century that it became factory farming, or became a factory farming concept and what it is today. Now, thankfully, we don't have it here in my country, but in the USA, 10 to 20% of colonies are lost over the winter. Some of this is accidental, but most are on purpose. For some beekeepers, killing off their hives before winter makes economic sense. And this is done usually by the larger factory farming style of beekeeping rather than the smaller privately owned beekeepers. And one way to destroy the hive, listen to this, pouring gasoline over it and setting them on fire, bees trapped inside. Another abhorrent abuse practice can occur in the larger honey production units. The queen bee's wings are cut off, so she can't leave the colony. She can also be artificially inseminated. Oh, yes, she can. On a bee-sized version of the factory farm rape rack, as we vegans call it. So now, hopefully you can understand why vegans don't eat honey. This is a product that is so easy to get off the supermarket shelf that we forget how much the bees endure and suffer for our taste buds. A vegan, well, anyone, can replace honey with various sweeteners. There is sugar from white to raw, coconut to date. And speaking of dates, whole dates are made into a paste. And this would have to be my go-to after maple syrup. Please tell me your favourite sweetener in the comments below. That's it for today. Thanks for watching. And, please like, comment and subscribe. Remember to have great food. Make it plant-based and be compassionate to all animals, insects too, and humans. Bye for now.